Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff, Mosher, Adam, Caplan. Got a lot to talk about here on this episode of Inside the Birds. We're going to recap the Eagles' preseason opener. Oh my God, they lost. I can't believe how'd they let that one slip through their fingers, Adam. It was harrowing, wasn't it? Terrible.
It's funny because I mean, I know coaches could care less. They'd like to win, obviously, would rather not lose, but this is more of an intel review. We'll go inside as we always do. What happened? Why it happened? Interesting stuff on defense. We thought we'd see some things. We saw it. It just was an interesting game. A little bit more because remember they only play 3 preseason games now, not 4.
Right.
And teams now do not look at the preseason like they used to when they had 4 games. It's almost completely different where the starters were never playing the first week or barely. Now that some teams are playing them because they feel like they need to junk it. Forget the 3rd preseason game. Guys are playing, and yeah, both teams played a lot of starters.
They did. So we got to see a little bit of that. We got to learn a little bit offensively and defensively. We'll talk about that, give the sourced intel. A couple of transactions that have transpired since we'll get into. And then, of course, later this week, the Eagles will begin their first of 2 straight weeks of joint practices. They will start off with joint practices against the Cleveland Browns this week. Adam will be there. He's continuing his NFL training camp tour. You're going to be in Foxborough earlier this week, checking out the Patriots, right?
Yeah, I leave in about so it's 6 a.m. Eastern on Monday. I leave in about 6 hours to drive to Foxborough. The Patriots are hosting the Panthers for 2 days.
Nice.
And then I drive home, and then I'll be home for about 8 hours, and then I leave Thursday morning, probably like 7 a.m. And the practices, it actually works out. The practices are not, it's weird. Like most practices are in the morning. Like when you and I are in Miami next week, those practices are around 10 a.m.
Yeah.
For some reason, the Browns Eagles are 2 p.m. and about 4. So it just works out. And I've been to the Browns facility plenty of times. In fact, I got a speeding ticket one time, a half a mile out. And it was 35 miles was the speed limit. I went 50. I didn't see the sign, and I got nailed for like $150 or something.
You hardened criminal, you.
Yeah, exactly.
50 in a 30-mile-per-hour zone.
35, yeah.
Adults, please keep this man away from your children.
Yeah. Gotta be careful out there. Anyway,
it does seem weird they practice at 2:00. I guess their objective is to practice at the hottest time of the day, unlike some teams like the Eagles that move up practices to try to avoid the sweltering heat, although it's supposed to be kind of nice this week. We'll see. You're, by the way, Berea, Ohio. That is right outside Cleveland, I imagine.
Yeah, Berea. Yeah, it's
Berea.
It's within like 20-25 minutes of the stadium, I think.
All right, very interesting. And of course, as Adam mentioned, next week both of us will be in South Florida to cover the Miami Dolphins, Philadelphia Eagles joint practices and get you all prepped and ready to go as we'll start to get closer to the regular season after that. So we've got a lot of content up on InsideTheBirds.com. Myself, Adam's got stuff. Andrew DeCecco's been writing, so try to keep you updated. I wrote an observations piece off the game that I was at, the preseason game Friday night, and then a follow-up piece the next day with a few extra observations that I called my extra points column, which I try to do even during the season as well. So make sure you're checking that out. And let's get into some of the injury updates here. We had a couple of guys return to practice on Sunday, which was good to see. Kenny Gainwell among them, Devontae Smith among them, Adam. That was really that's the big two. There were a couple others, and I know Jaquaski Tart came back to practice from his personal reasons, but obviously getting Smith and Gainwell back, very big. Everybody saw, Adam, on Friday night how many carries and touches that Huntley got, Jason Huntley, because they were pretty thin at running back.
Wow. There. I couldn't believe it. Like, they
had nobody else to get reps.
I mean, Kenny Brooks got a run there.
Yeah.
The kid played one snap on special teams, Torrey, who they signed.
Right.
He replaced, we'll talk about the transactions, Whiteside who went on IR, but it just was crazy. Yeah. I mean, 20 touches. Wow.
He was going for all, we used to call them all Lehigh. He was trying to be all preseason team.
Wow. He scored too. Yeah. He did a lot. He definitely played. So yeah. So Gainwell's back, limited,
Right.
but that's good. He's back. The big one, obviously, this is huge. Is Devontae Smith back? Missed 2.5 weeks of practice. Jimmy Moreland, as we told you last week, we were told it was a minor ankle injury. He returned on Sunday. Tart returned for the personal issue. Kerry Vincent, who's a major long shot to make the team, he returned, but he's going to have to get in the games and not get cut first and try to get out there. But now the guys who did not work on Sunday, Miles Sanders had a sleeve on one of his legs. He's fine. It's just a little sore. Boston Scott, remember, it's been almost 2 weeks now. He got that concussion that hit in the head.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Greg Ward, long shot to make it, also with the toe. Calcaterra should be back, at least limited, within the next week or so. He should start working.
Mm-hmm.
Arthega-Whiteside didn't work. He was not injured on Sunday. That was kind of odd. LaRaven Clark continues to be out with that hamstring. Kelsey, we don't have the left elbow surgery. On our last show, we kind of told you what our sources told us. He'll play week 1, barring any kind of setback, of course. Javon Hargrave continues to be out with a toe. We'll get to that, about what that looked like in the game. Christian Ellis with a hamstring. Jared Maiden got carted off in the game, I believe, with an ankle injury. So I don't know how long he's going to be out. Then Sirianni's press conference was hilarious on Sunday. He's funny. This is one of those. Didn't you think it was entertaining? I thought it was hilarious.
I did. I think he was feeling his oats.
Yeah, it was just, I know you got some questions in. Good for you. And when was that game? Friday night? Yeah, you got a couple in, 2 or 3.
Yeah, I got a couple in on Friday.
Yeah. So he was so funny. So Sirianni. So I guess Covey told the media that he tore ligaments in his thumb. Well, Sirianni squashed that and said it's only a sprained thumb, and to nail that, Covey actually worked on Sunday. He took some limited work in. So,
well, can we ding Nick Sirianni on a technicality? Because technically a sprain is a minor slight tear.
It is a tear. True,
by letter of the law, maybe Bryn Covey was sort of correct, even though that's not what he meant.
Well, but if he tore a ligament, that's much worse.
It would have been way worse. Yes.
Right. So you wear a splint, or you tape it up, and you go, and we'll talk about him and Tyree Jackson and Brett Toth remain on PUP. They're on their active roster, by the way. You go in season, you go on, if you're still on it, you're on reserve PUP, then it doesn't count against the roster. And they're both coming back from the ACL injuries. And the transactions, as I mentioned, Keurig Whiteside was waived injured on Wednesday. He's now on IR. Typically, bottom of the roster players, more often than not, they don't keep the player on IR. They reach injury settlement. Mm-hmm. Unless they really, really like the player, they'll keep them on there for as long as they need to, so no one else could get them. And then the kid Torrey signed to take his place on the roster. He actually played one snap on special teams. The two waves were Ali Fayyad and Dunkel, who played in the game. He played a decent amount of snaps and need to cut 3 more players by tomorrow.
Yep.
At 4 p.m. Eastern, when they get down to the first cut, this is it, 85.
Want to speculate on who those 3 players might be?
I'm
thinking a corner. Usually
I would
corners.
Yeah.
They have so many. I think one corner may go.
Well, they got to give Jimmy Moreland the chance to at least push.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Josiah Scott's making the team. That's not in question.
Right.
He's been a top 3 story training camp. We didn't really hear anything about him in OTAs, to be honest.
Correct.
What we had heard 2 weeks ago was that, man, he's really coming on. He didn't have much of a chance after the trade from Jacksonville. They wanted to give him a chance to get some things done, and he's really taken to it. Slot corner, this is the thing when you keep a guy on the roster, he's got to be more than a backup slot corner. That's not going to keep you on the team.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's shown that he can play safety. And that's I don't know this for a fact, but I'm assuming that they must have seen something. And when you could play safety, slot corner, specials, you're making the team. And he's taken to the coaching, and good credit to him. And yet another one for Denard Wilson. He's clearly one of their best coaches. He's done a terrific job.
Right, definitely. They're carrying a lot of defensive tackles too. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8 of them. So you may see like a Kobe Smith.
Yep.
might so they got guys at excess positions that you're look at and say they're probably, I mean, they just signed the running back, but I think they're going to keep him because even with Boston Scott not back, but you need running backs to play in preseason games, and they were thin as it was.
And Sirianni alluded to this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of what other coaches have said around the league. Because of the joint practices, if they feel they got enough work there, they won't. The veterans may not play again in the preseason. It comes down, what do these guys look like? Now, I know the Bucs aren't going to play, as I understand it. They're veterans. Well, Brady had nothing to do with it. They just made a decision they're not going to play them. Oh, by the way, they have two sets of joint practices, but it's just, they don't think they need to do it. And I'll be interested to see what Sirianni does. If he thinks they got these guys get the great work in, because they're kind of like mini games anyway, because you're practicing along with your own guys and you're practicing with the other team. Then maybe these guys don't play, and it would be nice to get a better look at Tron Jackson. Not that he's in danger of making it, but you like to see him in a more prominent role. Get Marlon Tuipulotu, who we've spoken a lot about. Marvin Wilson, give him a little bit more of a run. Jacoski Tart absolutely needs to play. I mean, and by the way, $500,000 is all they owe him. He's cuttable. He needs to earn it. Right now, he's not earned anything. He needs to get out there and just forget about challenging Anthony Harris. That's hard to see.
Right.
Show that you belong to the team.
Devin Allen, the Olympic hurdler, only got 8 snaps in the preseason opener. Now, this is a guy who, as we had, outlined many times, is just getting back into football after several years. What was it, 5 years since he last played in college, Adam? I think that's what it was.
16. 16 was the last time he played meaningful football.
Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that he didn't see a whole lot of snaps, but I'm not necessarily sure that he'd be a guy that'd be on the chopping block right away. They may want to give him the entire camp to see how he develops. But then again, if they did part way, they didn't give him a lot of guaranteed money.
Not a lot. No. It's Carson Strong, who didn't even play.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, that did surprise me. And I think maybe what happened, and I want to also give Sirianni props for being honest. Sinet was terrible at the beginning. Like you can't sugarcoat what everyone saw. If you really watch,
he wasn't good.
It's terrible.
Right.
But Nick, to his credit, said he was nervous, and I really appreciate him being honest about it, because sometimes Sirianni says stuff which I know is not the case, but he's trying to cover for the player, which coaches always do, or trying to be positive, which is fine.
Right.
But he told the truth that in his opinion, that he was nervous. And then like the second half of his snaps, he settled down, had that drive, and it was better, but he needs to just settle down a little bit.
Yeah. There were about 2 passes that, on that drive where they scored at the time, the go ahead touchdown. He hit Noah Togiai with a pretty good pass. And then I think Deion Kane, he went back to back Togiai and then Kane. Which showed you he started to settle in a little bit, but yeah, you're right. You can't sugarcoat. Everybody saw it. It just was not a very impressive debut for him. But I do agree that I believe that all we reported on the progress he's made, why the coaches love him, they wanted to get a good extended look at him. And I just, without knowing this, but just based on some of the things we've been told leading up to the game, feels like maybe they just don't want to put Carson Strong in a situation to fail, because he's just not there yet. He's not performing well in 7-on-7s at times. So it's tough to ask him to go out there in a game if he's not comfortable with the offense, if he's seeing things, if he's not ready, to just throw him out there, even in a preseason game. You want him to be at least ready for a preseason game.
Yeah. In fact, I wonder this week, because now they have competition, what kind of reps he'll get against Cleveland's, in the practices. Then, to me, after this, Hurts, I mean, we'll get into Hurts and that. Their offense was so good on the first drive. I just don't see why they'd have to play. They don't need to play the offense the rest of the preseason. They really don't.
Nope,
with these 2 practices. Why not take a look at your 2s? I know the Jets held out a couple of defensive players, but Sauce Gardner started. And they went right down the field. I mean, there's some stuff that needs to be better with Hurts, but overall, look, he was 6 for 6. We'll get him in a second.
Yeah.
But I'm just fascinated to see with how the Eagles coaches, and obviously the front office, while I was saying it, who plays, who doesn't in these preseason games, because when you have these joint practices, man, you get a lot of good work done. So we'll see what happens.
All right, last thing on Carson Strong. Any chance in your mind, and this is a speculative question, they gave him a pretty decent amount of guaranteed money for an undrafted guy, and it's pretty clear. I think what's that?
Over 300 grand. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would imagine they want to at least see some work put into him. Do you think maybe they're just not playing him at all so that he sort of becomes a forgotten person, so that when they do waive him, it's easier to get him back without anybody claiming him, because nobody saw him play.
Right. Okay. You know the trick. So it's a great point. Okay.
Wave him like a day or two before the touchdown day.
I call it a scam that GMs do. That what they do is, I know how I've talked to the personnel guys before about this. So what you do is, the trick is you cut them on a Thursday. Let's say there are a ton of games on Friday, right? Let's say it's the last week of the preseason. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but actually I can't look at it here. Thursday, Friday, it's kind of scattered, but the thing is, the game is that you cut them when nobody's paying attention. It's just so funny you brought that up, because I've had this conversation before. Like, they try to hide the player by, let's cut them so no one else will claim them, because if you do this during the week, you look at rosters and you go, well, you don't want to cut anyone right before your game. So you cut them right before your game, and then no one's going to claim. You think no one's going to claim them. Now, I don't know what happened with Togiai a couple years ago. I'd have to look that up, what day they cut him. By the way, he's had a very good camp.
I agree.
He's pushing, man. We'll see.
It's almost like they're double, because if there's no tape whatsoever on Carson Strong and they waive him, and that whoever picks him up has to pay the guaranteed money on his deal, right? Because they claim the contract.
Yeah.
Then it's sort of like you're daring a team to pay him that guaranteed money when there's zero tape of him. Like, they can't even say if they've been impressed with him or not.
Right. So what they justify? Well, here's the thing. So every NFL team gets they're on a like a news service. Mm-hmm. Read all the news clips. They know that anyone who's been in training camp is covering the Eagles knows that Carson Strong is, if you're grading either 90-man roster, he's probably been one of the bottom 5 guys in terms of performance. We know there's a lot of talent there, but he physically is just not there yet. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. We'll see what they do here with him. He needs to get snaps in a game, and they'll do it. I mean, I don't. They gave an extended look with Sinet, and we'll see what they do this week against Cleveland. That game is, by the way, Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern.
Sunday at 1. That's right. All right, a few transactions. I don't know that we went through this yet. They waived injured Carrick Whiteside, the wide receiver.
Yeah, I just mentioned all those. Yeah.
You did get that? Okay, I know we talked about Dunkel and Fayad being waived as well.
Okay. Yep. So they got 3 more by tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. This is not. These are. I hate to say easy. It's the most least painful of the cuts, but the one when they got to get to 53. We were talking about this last show. It's going to be harder because this is a really good roster. I can't remember the 5 years we've done this show where I felt like saying to you, like, okay, wow, this is a pretty good roster. When's the last time we said this is a really good roster? I don't know if we ever said that.
2018.
Did we say it? Okay.
Let's see. I did not like the Eagles as much as others going into 2020. I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs, even though they were coming off that great 2019 4-0 December.
Yeah.
So I guess 2019, though, I thought they were. Remember they were surprisingly bad. They had to rally and win those games in December. I thought there would be a pretty decent team, not as good as 17 and 18, but I thought better than what they wound up being, which was a 9-win team and then lost to Seattle, I think, in the first round.
Oh yeah, it's when Wentz got knocked cheap shotted by
But this roster is much younger than that roster. They were trying to get by on the Deshaun Jacksons of the world and the Alshons, and it just didn't work out for them. This roster is better all around.
Yeah, the only weak spot is safety.
Right.
Linebacker, we keep telling people you're not going to be embarrassed by this linebacker group anymore. It's actually young. Mm-hmm. It's actually talented. Mm-hmm. We'll see. They haven't gotten to a real game yet, but on paper, this is a very good roster that I just comparatively, we'll make our divisional picks, and all. We'll make all our picks at right before the season starts. But I don't see how, if you compare the other teams in the NFC East. And Cosell said it when we did those shows, folks. You could listen or watch on YouTube if you want, or listen on the pod, however you want to consume it. I mean, Greg said it. He said it. The best roster in the NFC East.
Yeah. I actually bumped into Greg at the preseason game.
Was he there?
Friday night, he was there. Yeah, and we talked about it, and he reiterated he felt that the Eagles have overall the best roster in the NFC East.
There you go.
All right, so we'll get into our observations in a second. We've been telling you about our new partner. We've been wanting to partner with them for a long time. Freestone Farms CBD. It's our favorite CBD brand because they farm it themselves with all organic inputs. They offer you education on what they grow and how they grow it to make the best quality products on the market. We've tried other brands, but honestly, Freestone Farm CBD has been amazing. We like it after workouts with that regular post-workout feel. And of course, before bed, as we sleep so much better at night. And what's really exciting, that's the real key. Yeah. What's really exciting is our friends at Freestone Farms have unveiled a new strain that you've heard us talking about, a whole menu with supremely good CBD at prices you're going to love. You just got to go to freestonefarmscbd.com. You'll find it all there. Listen, the menu's got stuff you got to check out. They've got strains like the insane tropical tasting Bayox. It clocks in at a chart topping 24.1%. And then there's the super CBD. It's a half Hindu Kush at 21%. The genetics they use just don't get better. They grow all of their premium hemp flower in the Garden State with all organic inputs and IPM. Absolutely nothing synthetic from farm to jar. After harvest, they carefully preserve all their plant compounds with a perfect 3-month cure. One look, one smell, it's enough to know. CBD done right. And it's a great product for anyone looking to take a natural approach to what they put in their body. On top of that, and this is the best deal of all, if you use code ITB at checkout, you'll get 20% off. That is a ton, folks. 20% off. Promo code ITB at checkout on FreestoneFarmsCBD.com. All right, let us get into the nuts and bolts of the preseason game.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was kind of interesting that Landon Dickerson didn't start. I guess they said he had a foot soreness or something like that. So it wound up being with him and Kelsey out that Cam Jurgens got to start center and Sua Opeta got to start at the left guard spot for Landon Dickerson.
Yeah, so my understanding on Dickerson has been bothering him, just so you know, it's been bothering him for a while. So Opeta started. Jurgens, who was really good, by the way, started for Kelsey. Jalen Rager started for Smith, although they started him a 3-receiver set. Watkins was a slot. Milton Williams started for Hargrave, which you would expect anyway. And they just got off to a great start. I mean, really, they marched. Other than I think you said, didn't you tell me off the air? There's one snap you had heard. You saw Opeta got beat.
It was the first snap of the game where Jalen Hurts rolled right and hit Quez Watkins for 28 yards. That was a
great throw, by the way.
It was a great throw. My first impression was, why did he wait until he got to the sideline to throw the ball? It looked like an over route from Watkins at that point. I thought maybe he had a chance to hit him earlier just to get him to turn up field. But, I mean, we're being ticky-tack. It was a 28-yard gain. Great job. But what did we talk about, Adam? When you're going to leave the pocket, he did a great job of keeping his eyes downfield.
Maintaining him.
You can see the whole way he's looking and he's trying to survey the scene there. So great job by Jalen Hurts. But yeah, that was a pressure that Opeta let up, but he was also letting it up to Quinnen Williams, who's a pretty good player. So I mean, that's not a great matchup for the Eagles all the time, but obviously Jalen's legs made that favorable. But in general, I think, from the naked eye and then also from sourcing, I mean, Cam Jurgens, for a guy to step in and play like that, Adam, I mean, I know the Jason Kelsey comparisons are out there. You can see why. I mean, what he did well was getting into space, covering up linebackers on screens or on kickouts for runs. I mean, he's athletic. You can see it in him. I mean, he can move really well for a guy.
He's long. They say he's, centers are typically not very tall like he is.
Mm-hmm.
He's a really big. Remember, his former tight end. He's a big time athlete. He's only played center for 2 years,
right?
But it's in the infancy here. Let's not go crazy. But he's certainly off to a good start. He's had a good camp, by the way. We should mention that. He really has. He's a little bit ahead of schedule as we understand it. Obviously he's going to start for Kelsey in the preseason because Kelsey will not be available until week 1. In fact, we're not even sure when he'll be able to practice leading up to that first week against Detroit.
Right.
They'll see when they get there. They'll see how the rehab goes on that left elbow. But the good thing is they marched right down the field. Hurts, look, he was 6 for 6. Just a couple things. He had Goddard wide open on the first check down to Sanders down the right slot. You could see it. You could actually see it off the TV copy for folks who have it or saved it. You could see it. So you want to make sure you when you're getting a full field, you see the field. But he didn't turn it over. They went down and scored. The fact they scored twice. One got called back. Hurts' run. Hurts' touchdown run got called back. Mailata did hook him. I know people don't like it, but it's definitely a penalty. He got his arm around the guy's, grabbed the shoulder pad. You could see it on TV. You could actually see that.
So the check down you're referring to, I think that Miles picked up 12 yards on that. Was that like the
it was the first of his 2 catches?
Yeah. So yeah, I had a feeling because I haven't been able to see all 22 on that specific play that maybe there was somebody there, but he threw it quicker than your average check down. It wasn't like 1, 2, 3 check down. It wasn't a screen because it wasn't.
Oh, it was definitely a check down.
It was definitely a check down, but without knowing him and being ahead, sometimes you'll see a quarterback do a quick check down if the defense he's expecting is not, if it changes at the last second. And I'm fine. I mean, Tom Brady has made a career on that with James White and his pass catching guys. So if it goes for 12, I'm not going to be all that upset about it. I know you don't want him leaving plays on the field. Absolutely. But they got a first down on it. So I'm not going to be too ticky-tack. And again, without knowing why he checked it down that quickly, it wasn't like your normal 1, 2, 3 check down. It almost was like he stopped back and then he checked it, meaning like I just got the impression watching it, maybe he was just seeing something different than he thought and checked it down. They got 12 yards. So I don't have the issue with that.
Look, I was just good. Sanders had 2 catches in the game.
Yeah.
Because, once we get into the regular season when everybody's playing, the only way he's going to get it, these catches, most likely on first and second down, because I don't see him playing a lot on third down. He won't be out of the game at every third down, but Gainwell's going to play a lot on third down. And hurry up, 2 minute, 4 minute, whatever the case may be. At the end of the half, last 2 minutes of the half, if they have the ball. This is why they drafted him. He could be that guy, and he's going to wind up being that guy for the most part. So I just like the tempo. They tempoed. They did a good job of no huddle. They moved the ball well. Just really, really good job of execution. Good game plan by the coach. It wasn't that they were showing anything. It was just everything seemed to be synchronized very well.
What do you make of 6 for 6, not one target for AJ Brown after all week long? The narrative was he throws to AJ Brown too much. It's kind of funny that not one single target.
Right.
No, I think it's fine, and I don't think there's anything wrong with targeting a number 1 receiver a lot in practice either. I'm just saying it was very. I think a lot of people were pleasantly surprised by him being able to spread the ball like that and not once going to AJ Brown.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny. Right. And I remember Joe Banner saying when he bristled, he had a real problem with people getting mad that Wentz would target Ertz so much. He goes, as long as it's working, keep doing it. Joe, I remember asking Joe about that. And he said, no, that's fine. If the guy gets open repeatedly, why would not throw it to him? I'm like, okay,
right.
I got it.
Right.
But you also would like to spread it around. It depends on obviously how good your other pass targets are. AJ Brown, no offense to Jeffrey. I know that you and I were debating this some weeks ago, but you'll see over time if AJ Brown's healthy, he's a better player than Jeffrey. I mean, he's something else. Something else. I'm looking forward to seeing in training camp, as you saw it when you were there. The guy just dominates, just absolutely dominates against Slay. I mean, he's got the better part of him, but
well, I will already admit that he'll be a better version he'll be a better player than the Eagle version of Alshon Jeffrey. I think I got be a better version than the Bears version of Alshon Jeffrey.
Alshon's very good
version of Alshon Jeffrey.
Well, Alshon had the suspension with the Bears that didn't help him, but
he did.
I thought
real quick, one thing I wanted to mention on just how they went attacking, I think you go into the game wondering, are they going to open up the passing offense? Are they going to throw the ball around? Which they obviously did. They didn't run one single running play.
How about that?
There, the only runs were Jalen Hurts runs. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then secondly, I thought Jalen did a really good job of, when you go up against a team like the Jets who play predominantly cover three,
They were cover three.
Has brought that over from San Francisco. And we talked about this going back to the Doug era when teams would play cover three against his vertical offense, is that the seams are going to be open. If you have the protection, you only have one safety deep. You look the safety to one side, then throw to the other. And if you notice, many of the throws, including the touchdown to Dallas Goedert, were right around the seams or the hash marks. Jack Stoll caught a 6-yard pass on the right seam. Quez Watkins had caught another pass that was, I believe, also around that area. And then, of course, the one to Dallas Goedert was just a one. You see him drop back. I don't know if he looks the safety off, but he certainly kind of gives a pump. And then he throws a dart to Goddard, who's, what he planted. Goddard did such a great job of knowing where to be in that zone. And then Goddard doing Goddard things, right? He catches the ball and then bowls through two guys and falls ass backwards into the end zone. That's Dallas Goedert.
Jermaine Whitehead, Jordan Whitehead, he knew he got beat, so he just tried to hit him. He pushed him forward. Yeah, exactly. I love that line, doing Dallas Goedert's things. He is amazing. He's great at running after the catch. That's his specialty. Mm-hmm. It's just a well-executed drive, and what a good coach does is he pulls everyone out. Do not let them play the second series. You got what you wanted, pull them out. Good job by Sirianni.
Yep.
That's what you do. I mean, you got exactly what you wanted. They marched down the field. Hurts was 6 for 6. I like how he surveyed the field. Now, I know people got on Hurts about not sliding.
Well, let's talk about that play in general. But go ahead. Yeah.
I was just, look, if you remember, Frank Reich lit up Carson Wentz when in 16, his rookie season. Frank actually talked about it. I remember it because I asked people, what were your thoughts? And they said, oh, Frank lit him up. Because, you're told how to handle this, and you still don't do it. It pisses coaches off. It's like, you're the starting quarterback, slide, man,
Right. So that too. And then also, and this is my lone criticism of Hurts in the offense that night. And really it's on Hurts. All right. Because of what we talk about, if we're going to give him credit, he read the cover 3 really well. He hit the seams well, but we also have to discuss some of the things that, he still has to work on. And bailing from the pocket is something we talk about he has to work on. He said there was pressure. Nick Sirianni said that, he understood. Nick Sirianni sort of fudged it. At first he said pressure, and then the next day on Sunday, he said, well, there doesn't always have to be pressure for a leaving of the pocket to be a good play. He's basically started saying you can just see an alleyway, you can do other things. It doesn't have to be pressure. Well, if he doesn't get late hit, he doesn't get the first down. So, I mean, we can't assume there's always going to be a late hit. So it wasn't necessarily the greatest play just because he ran and may have seen something. And secondly, there was not NFL pressure. Greg Cosell is on with us very often, and he talks about perceived pressure versus actual pressure. On that play, Jermaine Johnson is being blocked by Lane. Now he's pushing Lane back and pinching, what I would say, the pocket to Hurts' right. And what that did was create a little alleyway for Hurts where he could have stepped up into the right. He could have stepped up and climbed the pocket, bought time and made a throw because there were open receivers on that play. But he ran out of the pocket, and Jermaine Johnson had not beaten Lane Johnson. They were engaged in combat. So just because the pocket was getting pinched, again, is not a reason to always have to just get your instinct to run and head for the sidelines. I mean, if he had stepped up, he would have had some pretty good opportunities to make a good pass there.
Mm-hmm.
That's my lone criticism. And, we probably won't see them again for the rest of the preseason. So you'll hope it just continues to be.
But what's it? I don't disagree with you. The thing that we were told is that for the first time since he's been an Eagle this offseason, he's not bailing a lot. Like he's hanging in there way better. Like the first year, it was not good. 2020, like we were told, it was not good. He just was bailing way too much. Mm-hmm. Less so last summer, still occasionally do it. Let the play develop. We obviously saw some stuff last year, as Greg pointed out. It's on tape. You can't deny it. But we were told this spring and this summer, way better with it. But It's not perfect. That you're not. It's not perfect yet, and you're not expecting to be perfect. We just have to make them aware. But overall, look, they marched right downfield, scored, excellent execution. Blocking was really good. You got, if you're Nick Sirianni, you just got to be super, and his offensive staff, and obviously Shane Steichen, who calls the plays. You couldn't. I mean, how? I don't care who was on the Jets. You know, they had enough starters. Not a lot. They had some. Oh, by the way, you know who started? A former Eagle legend, Will Parks, started for the
Yes.
Jets.
And you know who finished? Real Eagles legend
Oh,
Nate Herbig, who was
are you
like
ready
one of the
for this?
stars of the game for the Jets.
If I told you, thank you. If I was going to tell you, we were told by Jet source he actually played really well.
Yeah, how about that? There's a couple of former Eagles on it. Now Vinny Curry didn't play, but he's on the Jets.
Yeah.
Elijah Riley played, former Eagle.
Look, in fact, for the life of me, now he was starting some last year. I don't know why they cut him. They should have kept him. To be honest.
Yeah, to be honest, to be fair though, he's still running with Jets third stringer, so it's not like he's progressing. I mean, he was playing in the fourth.
Well, but I don't know. Yeah, but I don't know if that, because I know Whitehead came up for the Bucks. If he's going to start,
I'm
interested to see what his role will be. We'll see what this season. But I just, with the team that has been so weak at safety, I just thought they should have given the guy a chance. But hey, it is what it is.
It is what it is. All right. So that is basically our off. Let's see. Well, we talked about Huntley getting so many snaps and why. Deion Kane was second in total snaps for players. Now, this is a guy we said has been having a good camp. It was nice to see him get out there and get some run.
Yeah, he did a good job. I mean, in terms of just, he won sometimes, didn't get the ball for whatever reason. The offense bogged down, particularly with Sinet in there.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's just hard. It's just, it's one thing if Deion Kane would have played with the starters for 2 quarters, he might have had 4 or 5 catches. Their timing was off on the pass game after, or second quarter on. It was really in and out. But overall, the offense was choppy after the starters left. Jason Huntley led the whole team in snaps, both sides of the football. It's crazy.
I think there are times where he like a lot of small shifty backs try to go east to west a little bit too much. I mean, it took him three times to get into the. I mean, he's not a big guy, so he shouldn't be a goal line back. But it took him 3 times to get into the end zone on the touchdown, and then on a couple. I thought he caught the ball well and showed good straight line speed, but we already know he has good straight line speed.
A good return.
As a runner, I just I wasn't overly impressed. He did have a good return. By the way, Covey had a nice on his one kickoff return that went for 25 yards. He did make a guy miss as he was going through the hole there. He kind of got skinny, which for him is pretty easy.
Yeah, he's got really good hands. So we'll see. He had 2 pass targets, also in the game.
Right.
The Sipas, he had a couple inside the 20, so that hurt his net. But overall 46 yards average. The coverage teams, again, not great. That's something that's just got to be better. They're a very average coverage team at best.
Right.
The coverage teams have to be better this year.
Right. No doubt about it. All right. So, by the way, I think we'd be remiss to mention, right? You could tell Gardner Minshew's a gamer. He has not had a great camp, but he goes out there in a preseason game and clearly looks like the number 2 quarterback ahead of Reed. Not that it was an issue, or even a competition, but he looked more like the Gardner Minshew that you would expect. In fact, he had a nice rollout to his left, threw a nice pass to Watkins that was a little high, but he's rolling to his left. Watkins should have caught it. It was right in his hands, and it just went right through. And he had some of those issues last year, Quez Watkins, catching those type of balls. Some he went up and got well, and others he dropped. So he's got to kind of clean that part up. But that's about it for the offense. We'll get into the defense in a second. First, we want to remind everybody, check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan, that's their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com. And we'll pause real quick for another word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. All right, Eagles defense. What stuck out to you, Adam, besides the quick turnover there?
I was
What did you
told
know?
that they play with great energy, the first team defense.
Certainly.
Kyzir Wade, of course, had the interception. The first 3 plays, 3 down, 1 up. 1 overhang was Reddick. 4th play of the game, Graham was at the end of, they played 4 down.
See, that surprised me a little bit. They were way more of a traditional 4-man front. Not traditional, because it was
3 down. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, a 30 front, but 4 men at the line of scrimmage. Not as much 5-1, 5-2. Not until the second quarter did I see the first evidence of 2 overhang players on each.
And again, it's really a 34. You could play 2 guys up and mix it look like a 5-2. It's still a 34, with just 2 overhangs make it look like a 5-2. Or you could have your
right, but they didn't even do that until the second quarter. They don't really even showcase that until the second quarter.
And they came out in nickel. Max was the slot corner. I just thought it was interesting. We know they're going to be very multiple. It's the only thing we feel very certain of this year is they're going to be super multiple. How they do it, because they have Reddick, they have new players. They have a lot more talent on all 3 levels of their defense. Dean had 5 combined tackles, 4 solo. He showed up. He was physical. He played a good game. I don't know exactly what his grade was, but I just was told he looked the part. Very physical and diagnosed really well.
There was a play, perfect, but I'm sorry, there's a play by Nakobe Dean, and I didn't notice it until after. I guess somebody put a video out there.
Okay.
A tight end had lined up a little offset and was coming across the line of scrimmage like a trap block up the middle, and Dean pancaked. Dean went right into him, shoved him to the ground, and he actually wound up tripping up the running back on the play, who got no yards on the play, which it was a very physical play for a guy. That was a Trotter-esque type of move for a guy who's not very big. So.
I get that T.J. Edwards had a great camp. I get it. He's had one of the best players on either side of the football and training camp. And Edwards almost certainly will technically be the starter, whatever that means. We have no idea yet. We don't know how many plays he'll play per game. But Dean is, again, not a criticism of Edwards. Dean's just a more talented football player. But competition makes everybody better.
Yep.
They have not been able to do this, and I don't know how long, since really the Super Bowl year, because they've been so bad at linebacker for so many years. They've got a lot of talent at linebacker, and Gannon's got, and his coaches have they've got a lot of things they could do with these guys. I'm fascinated to see what they could do with Dean. Remember, he's a really outstanding blitzer.
He is. No, he was definitely a physical player, as was Jordan Davis. And I wrote this, Adam, in the observations piece. He's never probably, at least for year 1, maybe year 2, he's not going to be the type of guy who fills up your stat sheet with tackles and sacks. I don't know if he had either one of them, but there were times where they had 2 and 3 guys trying to block him. I mean, he was as disruptive as they come, as far as just occupying blockers and being very active. That might have been hyperbole, disruptive as they come, but he certainly commanded attention out there and helped the rest of his line.
That's huge. What you just said, that he didn't get on the stat sheet, but no, that's the hidden information. It doesn't show up on a stat sheet, but he takes up so much room and handles blockers. And if you're going to be a 34 front, which they're going to run a lot of, you need that, particularly if you're playing in the way that they use him. In fact, I know they've shaded him. They've used him in a bunch of ways, but remember, he's the future of this defensive line. And it's good that he's got off to a pretty good start from what you understand. Seemingly he's got his weight under control. That's a good thing.
That is a good thing. By the way, that was his pressure that he pinched the pocket, forcing Zach Wilson to run on the play where Wilson got hurt. So Jordan Davis was the one that made that happen.
In fact, you could see him. In fact, you could see him hustling. If you remember, they showed it on the TV copy. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So good on Jordan Davis. Kyzir White, obviously. Now, I listen. Great instincts. I mean, he jumped. Great hands. I'll say. I don't know what Zach Wilson was thinking. It's like snaps the ball. He looks at the target, throws at the target, and he basically queued it up with a red carpet for Kyzir White to just jump it in front of it and make the play. But we've seen linebackers, defensive backs not even be able to catch that. So it's good that he was able to catch that, return to 20 yards, flip the field, as we say. this is something the Eagles absolutely need to do more in the regular season. They need to be more of a takeaway defense.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. Some of the part of their defense last year was so disappointing. The lack of turnovers forced. We Schwartz is the end of Schwartz, the Schwartz era. That was, obviously a part of the problems people had. He always had his answer. You can't try to force turnovers, all that stuff, which people just dismissed.
Yeah.
As good of a coach as he is, that was just, people could not understand that one. But they've got a bunch of guys who can do it. Dean, obviously, because he could diagnose and hit. As you said, for a guy who's not the biggest guy in the world, he's so smart and instinctive and tough.
Mm-hmm.
The front seven is going to generate so much pressure. By the way, Josh Sweat had a pressure in the game.
Mm-hmm.
The little that he played. They're so deep on the defensive line. They're going to have a great rotation. This is going to be fascinating to see what they can do with this defense. They should take a big jump this season. There's no question.
They should. And then some of that also, because of the back end coverage that they have, should help that front pass rush, that front seven out. We talked about Josiah Scott leading into the game and even a little bit in this pod, but obviously you saw him out there pretty early with the second team. He played some slot, played some safety. So exactly what we forecasted, exactly what we've been telling you, that the coaches have seen in him, that versatility, the ability to move around. And then, so when he was on the field in nickel situations, Zach McPherson was, your number 3 corner, number 1 on the outside, number 1 backup on the outside. And then the other backup outside corner was Josh Jobe on the second team. And I hope people remember in a recent podcast, we had said that, of all those back end corners, the Vincents, the McCains, the Goodrich, Jobe,
Gowan.
others that McCain, Gowan, that we had heard Jobe had been doing pretty well. So obviously you saw the results of that. And then in the second half, when McCain and Gowan went in, they got picked out. It looked like, Blackwell of all the guys that they have. Is it Josh Blackwell? They're like,
he played a lot.
Corner. Yeah, he played a lot and he made some plays. He made some plays. He looked active. So I don't know. It'd be very interesting to see. You remember they threw these darts at all these cornerbacks for the last 2 years and brought in the McCains and brought in the Kerry Vincents. Josiah Scott is one of them. So that might be their hit dart. And we'll see what in the next few weeks, if any of these guys start to separate a little bit better.
Yeah, well, that's the key, because right now, Scott's the 5th corner. Could they keep 6? Probably not. But as you just said, look, teams always say this. Guys play themselves on and off rosters.
Mm-hmm.
They won't expose the guy to waivers if he earns a roster spot. This is what they did with Corey Clement. The Eagles had a ton of running backs in camp. He was, he was so good. Obviously, this is an extreme example because he was special that you don't see undrafted free agents play at that level. That was just one of these things you can't explain.
Mm-hmm, right.
But if Josh Jobe if he tears it up the next 2 or 3 weeks, he's going to be on the team. You can't, they've had trouble developing their own corners. And now in recent years, and that's why they had to get Slay. That's why they had to get the other kid. So
would they consider him the 5th corner and kind of consider Josiah Scott a safety
hybrid,
then?
Yeah, hybrid.
Yeah, hybrid.
Maybe I'm not
sure. Josh Ray's a hybrid guy. Yeah,
he's going to do both. He's probably going to do both.
Mm-hmm.
He's a backup slot. He could also play outside. We were told when they traded him for him, he was most likely play slot, but he could play outside if they need him to. Not a problem, because he's done it before.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's super smart. And look, the guy was a 4th-round pick. Let's not forget.
Yeah.
Whether it was the right decision or not by the GM who's here now, Dave Caldwell. They traded for him. He's been a good story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what? I forgot to mention this when we were talking about the front seven, Adam. I thought Teron Jackson and Patrick Johnson looked pretty good.
Jackson
active,
had pressure,
made pressures. You could tell, they played different spots. Patrick Johnson was your overhang defender, like a backup to Hassan Reddick, and Teron Jackson looked more like a hand in the dirt defensive end guy. But yeah, they were both very active. Remember what I said going into the game? I'm very curious to see how this run defense does, because we could tell right away last year that they were going to have an issue the way the Steelers ran it down their throats, and then the Patriots ran it down their throats, and then it carried into the season. But the the Jets did not run the ball against them very well at all.
Hall had a great run. They only did one good. Brees Hall made an incredible
did make
cut.
somebody miss, right? Yeah.
Oh, that was beautiful. I mean, a guy that big to move like he can.
Right. But even that was just a 7-yard run. I think that was the longest
right,
run. Yeah.
Exactly. You're right. But it shows how you could change on a dime there. But no, overall they did a good job against the run.
Much better.
Look,
seems like they knew their assignments this time. They understand where to go, where to be.
Boy, they were bad against Pittsburgh. Weren't they being the second game too?
Yeah, so in the opening game against Pittsburgh ran 80 plays. 42 of them were runs. The Eagles ran 42 total plays. So Pittsburgh ran the ball as often as the Eagles actually had offensive plays.
Oh my God.
Then the very next week, the Patriots ran for like 215 yards and averaged 7.5 yards a carry on them. So you could tell it wasn't just like a quote unquote, that's a preseason thing, that they had a real problem there.
Yeah.
And no, they were much more stout. Oh, Tuli Pelota did a good job as well. So that second string D line, pretty good there. Good effort.
One more thing. Sasha played the most amount of snaps of any defensive player. Teron Jackson second. Reed Blankenship, who
they like him.
Well, right. We talked about the last year. The hope is that he does well enough that it's highly unlikely he'll make the team, but that because the coaches like him, that he's a practice squad developmental guy, because they really need to look. It hasn't worked out for Kavon Wallace. They really need to develop. Epps has been a good story, but they didn't draft him. They claimed him off waivers. So the final was rookie deal. They just have not developed. Other than Maddox, I mean, you go over the last 4 or 5 years, they've not developed a lot of their own players in the secondary.
Reed Blankenship's going to make the team.
You think so? Really?
Yeah, I think he is.
Okay, all right.
I think they're going to wind up stashing a safety on the practice. Well, there are a couple of guys. Remember how they did that like with Jordan Howard? Everybody thought Jordan Howard's making the team. He barely played, and then they did the old release and stash. And he
wasn't right, but he wasn't.
My antenna's up on what they're doing now. My antenna's a little up on what they're doing lately, the last few years, on how they're releasing veterans you'd think they were going to keep. I think they did it to Richard Rodgers last year and the year before.
Wink,
they know they can bring him back on the practice squad. So yeah. So and they do it to keep young talent. That's how Teron Jackson was on the team last year, even though he barely played. So I have a feeling, especially at that spot, safety, where they really need some young guys and good players that. Well, I can't call him a good player, but they really want to develop players that he might wind up making it. So.
I would not put him. I don't think he's got enough upside to. I get it. Their depth is bad at safety. Until Tart shows something, he won't be on the team unless he shows something.
No.
I hear you on that. I think he's more for the practice squad. But before we get out of here, this is
really, to be honest with you, those like Teron Jackson last year was a practice squad player who was the 52nd or 53rd. He didn't play. He was probably running on the scout team defense the whole year, but he was on the 53. But he didn't play.
Yeah,
he played in like the first 2 games, but he didn't really play.
He wasn't a factor. But before we get out of here, one thing to understand: it's going to be harder this year for them to keep a guy like Blankenship because the roster's so much better. It's just you can't keep everybody.
But at that spot. You're gonna have. Yeah, I mean,
I get it, but
he looks like Kavon Wallace is almost packing his bags at this point.
See, yeah, I hear you. You're not wrong on that. Based on kind of where he's at, he hasn't developed yet. But it's going to be interesting. These when they get to once they get to the final cut down and when we start trying to project about what it'll look like. They're gonna 2 or 3 guys are going to be cut, and the cuts are rarely surprising. But they're going to be a couple like boy, didn't see that happening, or wow, okay, they kept that guy over that guy. Okay, we'll have to find out why.
Yep.
It's just because you can't. They're in a tough spot with some of these players.
I agree. All right, so our next pod will drop Thursday morning. We'll have kind of your reports from out in Cleveland, what you saw out in Berea, what you saw with Browns and Eagles. And then
the first practice won't until Thursday, so
that's a good point.
Yeah, we may wind up doing something with me from Berea. I don't know yet. We'll see if there's certainly obviously when we drop our show on Monday, but maybe we'll do an ITB TV and just talk about my observations and anything interesting, because I'm really interested to see what they get accomplished in this practice. against Cleveland, the 2 practices. And the
Mhm.
weather, by the way, will be really good. Right now, it's projected to be in the low 80s and no rain or anything like that.
Perfect. Great.
So we'll see if we feel like we need to do it. We'll do it.
Cool. That's it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. Big thanks to our producer, Tyler Strasser, doing an excellent job. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds.